Welcome everyone back to Behind the Front Lines, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the war in Ukraine. We've had three big stories from the last 24 hours. Of course, many of you have already probably heard about the downing of the jet near Moscow, which has now allegedly killed Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner Group. Also, we have updates from the front line as Robertine has officially now been liberated. That's gone a little bit under the radar because of the news about Wagner and Prigozhin yesterday, but it has now officially been liberated, which opens the door to more advances on that main line of Russian defence and drawing the troops closer to Tokmak. And we also have a story about an alleged amphibious landing in Crimea by Ukrainian troops, where they did destroy air defense systems, which is an insane story and the first of its kind, I believe. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe. And if we just start by having a look at the latest from the Deep State map. If we do start with the latest from that downing of the plane near Moscow, if we do head northwards, you can see the capital city, Moscow, up there with the big star. It was to the north and the west where we did see Prigozhin's private jet get downed by allegedly air defense systems. No one truly knows exactly what's happened, but that is the rumour at the moment, that it was an air defense system that shot it down, making it extremely likely that it was ordered by people of power, most likely coming directly from the Kremlin with Putin's involvement. But at this stage, we don't have any absolute concrete news about it other than the jet was downed, and on the 10 occupants of that plane we had Yevgeny Prigozhin and other very high members of the and many other high up members of the Wagner Group. Again, we will have to wait over the coming day to see more information, but that is what we have at the moment. Absolutely nothing completely official, but at this stage it is likely that Prigozhin has been taken out, and it'll be very interesting to see the fallout from this over the coming days and the coming weeks. Stories have been coming out that some Wagner troops already deciding that they're going to march back on Moscow, but again, this could just be words from a few individuals and nothing that will actually properly take place. But it does really back the idea that the Wagner coup that we saw back in June wasn't some elaborate secret intelligence plan or anything like that. It truly was dissent within the ranks. Again, could be just highlighting the morale, the lack of morale that many of the troops have, and this assassination technically will not help, and it will help the Ukrainians go forward in their counter-offensive. Now, if you talk about what is going on with the counter-offensive at the moment, the biggest update we've seen in the last 24 hours is from the Orikhiv direction towards Tokmak, where officially Robertine has been liberated. Now, this has happened in the last 24 hours or so, but they have been operating within Robertine for the past week or so. It really pushed through the southern extent in the past 24 hours. If we do run back, you can see Tokmak was entered around a week ago on the 16th or 17th. Really initially only in the northern parts, and then Ukraine extended their control further eastwards, got fire control over these hills to the east, and generally the ground to the east, allowing the troops to push in further. And in the last 24 hours, we can see the whole of Robertine has been liberated now. Again, it's difficult to say exactly what is going on the ground, but the reports are that we do have the Ukrainian troops trying to progress towards Verbove, where we've got the first line of defence, and push southwards from the east of Robertine. Now, if we do put on the fortifications, we're able to see that pretty much now the Ukrainians have gone through the four defensive positions. So many would argue this isn't the first line of defence, but if you do look at it, it is the first line of defence. The main defensive line that everyone talks about is the second line of defence. We've got the forward positions out towards the first few settlements, the first sort of 10 kilometres of Russian lines, and then we've got the main line of defence. Now, remember, the main line of defence really is only going to be beneficial to the Russians if it's properly manned. And what the Ukrainians will be trying to do now is open up a wide gap, a wide area to attack this line of defence. Because if they did attack straight towards Verbove, you can see that the Russians could just put all their reserves on this stretch of 5 kilometres or whatever and thwart any Ukrainian attempts and just attrit their forces down. But if they can extend southwards of Robotine, maybe even westwards towards Novoprokopivka, and open a line of 20 or 30 kilometres, then they'll have a much better go at penetrating this line, either towards Verbove, or I think their ideal direction is towards Tokmak. You see now they have control of this road, this main road that now goes through Novoprokopivka. You've got 2 villages here near the main line of defence, small villages of Ilchennikove, Solot da Balka, and then you've got a few other villages off that main road before you reach Tokmak. Again, troops are about 20 kilometres away now in artillery distance, and they're within a few kilometres now of the main line of defence. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But I said this has gone very much under the radar in the past 24 hours or so because of the Yevgeny Prigozhin incident. So Robotino was essentially officially liberated with the flag flown through yesterday morning into the afternoon. That's when images started to come out, and then that afternoon and evening the plane went down towards Moscow. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Not only now morale will be dipped because of the Prigozhin incident, but they also have lost Robotine. You can also see the red squares here, and you can see the amount of forces that the Russians have accumulated near Orikhiv and also towards the Urozhaine area, where we don't have any updates. If you also have a look at the Institute for Study of War map, you can see that they've now introduced, I don't know if they've had this before, I've never seen it before until conducting this update, but we've now got darker blue area, which on the legend is reported Ukrainian territorial gains in the past 24 hours. This will make it a lot easier to view the changes on the ISW map over the next for the rest of the counteroffensive to see where the changes are. Now you see changes near in Robotine. Officially, they haven't extended it to the whole of Robotine, again, most likely because either hasn't been official confirmation or official visual confirmation, or it's just a little bit of a delay in updating the map. Of course, the ISW is very much more stringent on their map updates than other people are. So again, if something does change on the ISW, it is most likely something that has happened and officially happened. So we'll just have to wait to see if Robotine, when Robotine gets updated here. But you can see in the last 24 hours, about a kilometre of progress within Robotine to the east, and then smaller progress to the south. But again, I don't suspect the Ukrainians will be pushing here. I think they're most likely going to push to the east of this and to the west, trying to flatten the front line as they approach this main fortification line. And you see significant advances of multiple kilometres here towards Verbove. Again, uncertain whether this is just the ISW officially updating this, or whether this has happened in the last 24 hours, because you can see the other maps have pushed in this direction, but have pushed it in smaller amounts over the past few days, and so the ISW has had a big update in the past 24 hours or so. But you can see big changes near the Robotina area, and I think the most likely situation here is they're going to try and flatten the front line, essentially towards the north of Novoprokivka, all the way eastwards towards the fortification towards Verbove, assault Novoprokivka in the next week or two, hopefully take the town. As you can see, there are nowhere near as many fortifications here. There probably have been some built, but nowhere near as many towards the north, east and west of Robotine. Sort of no man's land here. Again, uncertainty whether they will put up a fight with Russians, but I think the next main battle in this counter-offensive will be coming up in the next couple of weeks, probably throughout September, will be for this main defensive line. If this main defensive line falls through September, then I do think the Ukrainians have a good chance of assaulting Tokmak and other areas and creating a large-scale territorial changes through October, similar to what they did in the Kharkiv and Kherson counteroffensives this time last year, where main territorial gains, were made in the September to November period. Even though there were advances and attacks through the summer, the main territorial gains, one must remember, was in the autumn. So that could happen once again here, but we'll need to see this defensive line be taken, and I do think it will be the main assault in the coming weeks. Now, the final story for this video is coming from Crimea. Now, over the last few weeks and last few months, we have seen multiple attacks, not only on the Kerch Bridge, but on Sevastopol and many other logistical areas, from not only Storm Shadow missiles, but now increasingly more from drones. And we've also seen drone attacks in Moscow as well. But I don't tend to report on them simply because they are more just logistical attacks, taking out supply routes or commanders, or just generally attacking morale. But we've seen very interesting reports from this morning that we have seen an amphibious landing by Ukrainian troops near to Oleniivka here, right on the western tip of Crimea. Now, in the last couple of days, we have heard that missiles and drones have taken out an air defense system in this area, which is very important, kind of a bit hysterical, considering the whole point of air defense is to take down these missiles, and they have taken missiles and drones, and they've been taken out by them themselves. But we've heard a story today being officially reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry that they have had an amphibious landing here, going on to the land onto this cape, taking out more air defense systems, and then withdrawing from the sector. So it's not an attempted assault at actually taking grounds. There's a very low chance that happens. The Ukrainians would need tens of thousands of troops in an amphibious landing to even attempt that, and of course in multiple locations. But this landing was to simply take out air defense systems, probably so that more fit missiles and drones can be successful in the coming days and coming weeks. Now, it's quite interesting as this coincides in the last week or two, stories and reports coming out of the United Kingdom that recently we have had Ukrainian Marines returning to Ukraine from British training on amphibious landing. So could it be a coincidence, or is this a direct result of NATO training that we now have Ukrainian troops, Ukrainian Marines, fully trained in amphibious landing and have had a successful assault on Russian air defense? So it's the first story I've heard of its kind where Ukrainian troops actually step foot on Crimea, only temporarily, probably for a matter of minutes or hours at most. But nevertheless, that will be really quite horrible for the Russians to hear, and it'll be a very good morale boost for the Ukraine as well. They were able to conduct these operations, and it'll be very interesting to see what they attempt in the coming days and weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. I'm sure we'll have some more news very soon, not only on the Prigozhin situation, but also on the continuation of the counter-offensive.